All right, folks. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome to this session on the ACA-900. Today we're going to talk about working with work items. I need to remember what these things are called now. There's another name that I'm going to try not to say out loud. If I make a mistake, you'll know because some funny sounds will play and I'll feel bad. Anywho, glad to see you all here. Welcome, Sarah from Dayton. We got Habana from Miami. Kiam, hope I'm saying that right, from South Africa. Emily from Pennsylvania. I'm in the Bay Area, California. We're going to jump in. As usual, we'll start with some slides just to get us all oriented on what we're talking about and why we're here. But then we'll jump into hands-on. We will be in Confluence Cloud Premium for for all of this, I should say. I will call out things that are different between cloud and data center or between cloud and other versions, but for the most part, what we're going to be seeing and doing will be the same across all flavors of Jira. The biggest difference I can imagine if you're on data center that you'll see is the new UI. I've turned that on, and I will briefly explain those differences and put some more information about that because it is, if not outright confusing, it's just changing our habit. So it's something new that is requiring us to relearn a couple of things. Excuse me. And that is causing some pulling of hair and gnashing of teeth, which is completely understandable. So I'll drop a quick link about the new UI. Just a short video explaining the differences. Personally, I like it, but I'll talk about that when we get there. So we're just going to jump in with some slides. As always, please use the chat. I'll talk a little bit more about that on slide number 2. For those of you who haven't been to one of these before, my name is Rob. I've been using Jira for about 10 years, and I don't have a lot of spare time. I enjoy doing things like earning certifications, but it does take time to learn these things. I've picked up other certifications, non-Atlassian ones, for example, the PMP, the Project Management Professional. Chad, are you saying you're from Vietnam or that there are people in here who are in Vietnam? Chad, I believe, is referencing a movie called Good Morning Vietnam. It's one of Robin Williams. I absolutely loved it growing up. There's a point where it stops being funny, and I'm like, why would they do that? But it's a very good movie if you're looking for something that is mostly uplifting. But I don't have a lot of spare time, and I realize I don't have a lot of Atlassian certifications, and I want to earn them. So I decided to do my study sessions online. So that's how I started these, and then I quickly realized there are a lot of people out there who also want to study these things. And so I put them on YouTube so other folks can join in. And so that's how I ended up doing these. I don't know about the best, Chad. Mrs. Doubtfire is pretty good. And also Aladdin. Come on. You destroyed voice acting in one aspect. Sarah, welcome to the Champions Society. I don't know what they call the group of champions. Atlassian champions are folks who help out with the Atlassian community, the greater group. We're all volunteers, but we do things like organize events, we run live trainings, and there's a new champion track. I forget what they're called. If you don't want to organize events but still want to be more involved, definitely something to look at. Chad, you're also in Cincy, Ohio. YouTube is great because you can all see and hear me. Challenge is I can't see and hear you. It makes it a little bit harder to interact. So please use the chat. It should just be to the right that way on your screen. Please use that to put in questions. Please use that to interact with each other. You'll notice some folks who have been in here more are very casual and interacting each other on random things like which movies are the best. So please use the chat to make this feel more interactive if you're comfortable doing it. I will ask questions to kind of prompt things, and I will ask things to help get people to think. But if you have your own questions or if you have your own concerns or problems, put them in there as well. Vijaya, welcome from Boston. Also, if you can hit the subscribe and like button, that's helpful for me. It also lets me know what you want to learn. And I do need y'all's help. I have a survey that I'll put in the chat just to figure out which one of these certifications should we do next. And I have 2 of these going at the same time. One for professional level, and the professional level is more for admins. That's not what this is, though. This is an associate level, and this is for everyday users. Emily, don't make promises you can't keep, please. So if you have a moment, if you could respond to that survey, that'll let me know what to do next. The ACA-900, this one, has 2 more sessions after today, and then we're done. They're very short. So I just need to know which ACA we should do next, and then which professional level if you're curious about that. A very quick agenda. We're here to talk about interacting with work items. So how do we work with these things in the system? And what do we need to know about them? Chad, wait. Why are we congratulating Chad? What did he do? Uh, he was now a champion. Awesome. Welcome, Chad. We'll be talking about work item anatomy. So just what is on a work item and what can we find there and where does it live? Then we'll talk about different types of work items. Now, there is another term you will hear work items called when I make a mistake, and that is called an issue. Whoops. And when I use that word, you'll hear a sound like that because I should not call them issues. I'm also trying to keep a tally of how many times I say that word that I shouldn't mention, just to see how much I'm making mistakes. So if you hear some strange sounds, that's what that's for. And we'll also go through and create some work items. So the goal here is to understand when I have a work item, what can I do with it? And then how do I do those things? And again, we will be in Confluence Cloud Premium. And Indy, awesome. So first question is, why are you interested in the course? Or this certification? And the understanding why, you may have heard me say last time, is important because it's what is driving us, what motivates us, why are we getting up early? As I mentioned, I would like to earn certifications so I can expand my knowledge. That is my own personal reason. There is no real right or wrong reason. Some people do it because they're curious. Some people do it because they want to work. Vijaya is a admin on data center for 7 years. That is amazing. And planning on doing Atlassian certifications. So while people answer this question, Vijaya, this training here is more intended for end users. So this will be beneficial for you. If you go through all this, you might know a lot of it already, but this will help you with the folks who work in your organization. As an admin, check me out on Mondays. I have a session on the professional level, which is more the administrator stuff. And that was a survey I put up at the top. We're doing one right now about Jira Service Management, and next we'll be doing one that we need to figure out. But Vijaya, a lot of what you know about data center will translate to cloud, but there will be some differences. Sarah likes to attend as much as they can. As some I would like to, and then trailed off. Jason, as a certified admin, it's my duty to continue training. I really like that mindset. Many of us, like when I became an admin, I was like, oh good, I have this magic power now, and I stopped learning. And that was very bad because the system changes. There's a new UI or something is adjusted. You don't have to share your reason why, but keep it in mind, and it can change. But when you're struggling or when you find it's hard to study or move forward, think back to why you're doing it. What will help motivate you? What will get you up out of bed? What will make you, write some extra flashcards or whatever you're going to do? So again, why do we do this course? The certification will give us skills. You'll attend these trainings. You'll do your own hands-on practice, which I hope you're all doing. And you'll just understand how Jira works. And this will help you in your job, and it helps others too. As I mentioned, Vijay, there will be people at your company who will come to you and ask questions about Jira, and you'll be able to answer them. And that's a great feeling, but it also helps your organization. It also validates our skills. You can go to your boss and say, look, I have the ACA-900 or the ACP-420 or whatever. That means I know how to do these things. Or you could look for a new job and you can tell them, hey, I'm certified in how to use Atlassian products. Please hire me. Now, you don't have to take the certification exam. So that is something else to consider. You can learn all this stuff and do your job better or just because you're curious, and you don't have to go sit the exam. The exam is $100. Many organizations will have a budget for that. So I recommend chatting with your manager or your team's learning department if your organization has one to see if they can cover this for you or if they have some kind of stipend. As I mentioned today, hang on, I got to go do the thing. Doink. There we go. Can anyone see why I did that funny sound effect on this slide? We will be working with work items. This is about half of the entire exam. So if you're looking at what to study, this is definitely the area to focus. And this is because most of what we do in Jira will be using and working with work items. The development teams I work with kind of live and breathe on the work item because that's where it tells them what to do. That's their work. So it's definitely something that we need to understand as ACA-900 practitioners, that when we go into it, we know how to manipulate these work items to do our job. And the reason I had to increment my counter by 1 is because of this little fellow right here. The word appeared on the slide, so I have to change my slides now. And as I mentioned, that word I'm not going to say out loud is dead. Long live work items. I will make a mistake. I will call them the other thing. Please know I mean work item when I say that other word that starts with an I. Next question. What is the most confusing thing about work items? And this could be anything about them. You don't like the color. You can't find the field you want. Someone wants to sign one to you and you didn't like it. Whatever the confusing thing is. And I'm asking because the things that we find confusing or frustrating or annoying are things we should address, because we shouldn't be confused or frustrated or annoyed in our job. We should be able to sit down and do our job, and the system shouldn't get in our way. So if we can understand what's frustrating or confusing about it, not just I don't like Jira, not just its boards annoy me. Why? What is the thing behind that that's confusing? I don't know how they work. I can't transition a work item. Those kind of questions. DevOps liked that word that I'm not going to say out loud. There was a lot of interesting debate over why that decision was made. I won't dig too deep into it here, but I appreciate that they're trying to make these systems broader and more easily accessible to more people. Okay, there's a lot going on this screen. This is a screenshot of a work item. And this is something that in my job I stare at quite a bit throughout the day. And for me, it's almost second nature. Like, I just know that if I go, say, up into the top right, that the status is right here. I know that my Atlassian Intelligence button, and this is something else that won't be in Data Center, is right there. And let me get a different color. Maybe I'll make it a nice pink. Yeah, there we go. So looking at a work item, we just kind of need to know where things are. The top right is always going to have the key, and that's just the number of the work item. It's always the project key, so RTS. I don't know what that stands for. Rob's test something? I should really know this. And the number is just an incremental number for that work item. As your system gets more use, that number will just go up. But that is a unique identifier. The term in programming is immutable. It can't change. And so RTS4 will always be this work item, unless it gets kicked out into another project. But RTS4 will always refer to this particular one. There are a lot of fields on here as well. The important ones are the ones that I always look for, the summary, and that's the one right up at the top. That's what someone puts in if they were putting in a help desk ticket, that one-liner, but it should briefly describe what the work item is about. So when you look at that, you know, oh, hey, Rob Heen is supposed to buy these servers. This isn't intended to be a big description. Instead, you've got this great description field, and that's where you can put in a lot more verbose information. You probably shouldn't be writing books in your descriptions, but it should be enough so that when someone picks up the ticket, they know what it's about. They can just get up and start going. The next section is linked items. This for me is becoming more useful as I use it more, but we can connect work items to other work items. So we can say they're duplicates or they block each other. And we can also connect other things. In this example, I'm connecting a Confluence page. And so on the work item, I can include other information to help out the people working on it so they don't have to go look for where is that document that I need to be successful. The bottom is also important. This is, they call the activity area. For me, it's where comments live. So as I'm working with my team and as I mention them, or if I get a ticket, I'm going to pop down to the comments to see what the last person has done to figure out what's going on with the work item. I almost said it. On the right is where I think a lot of people get confused, these sections with the fields. The top are pinned fields, and this is something I didn't know how to do until I noticed, and I'll show you this live. But each individual user can change this top section. So I'll encourage everyone to take a minute to go into Jira and figure out which fields you think are most important to you and pin them. And then they always bubble up to the top. And that makes them easily accessible. You know where priority is, or assignee, or development, whatever it is. And then under that, you've got details. Details are all the other fields, and depending on your setup, your tickets may have a lot of fields. Jira does its best to guess which ones to put in here. One thing that folks find frustrating, there is a more field section right down here, and people don't notice that. And so they wonder what happened to the other fields. They just get collapsed and hidden. So you can go in there and expand them and see them. So that's another place I look at the first time. I look when I first get on a ticket. Excuse me. And then down at the bottom, we've got stuff like automations, but also some important dates. I use the dates quite a bit when I'm looking through tickets to see, hey, has this been worked on lately? Or is there something missing? Just to see if the ticket's still active. So this is what we'll see when we look at work items. You'll get very familiar with this screen if you're using Jira on a regular basis. And even if you're not, the layout has mostly been static, at least as far as I can understand, for a while. Now, when we think of work items, there's different flavors. My favorite flavor is not on here. It's blue raspberry. But when we get a work item, one thing we should understand is what type of work is it? Most commonly, and what you'll likely see a lot on the exam, and I say that because it's focused a lot on Agile, is the story, and then also the epic. Now, the story is important because that is the bit of work that a developer might be given. And this would come from a customer. And it's the generic setup is, as a blank, I need X to do Y. As a online instructor, I need a chat platform to communicate with my audience. As an audience member, I need the ability to add emojis to make more interesting chats. And stories are one thing you'll see. They are this nice little green color. And I don't know what that icon's supposed to be. Anyone know the name of this shape? I'll try and draw it. It kind of looks like a tooth to me. I don't think it's supposed to be a tooth. Stories tend to be deliverables, though. Things that you'll accomplish and you'll give to the customer. And they tend to be described as non-technical. Now, that just means that it's not going to have very specific technical requirements in them necessarily. It's usually up to the developer or the person who gets the ticket to figure it out. And because they're green, I think that they're grape flavored. Because I couldn't think of another green flavor other than like broccoli, and that doesn't seem like fun. Epics, on the other hand, represent bigger pieces of work. They might represent an entire project, or they might represent it's a pennant. Like a flag. Well, they could have just made it a flag. Oh, a bookmark? But the thing I don't get is it's called a story. Yeah, okay, bookmark and story makes sense. I don't know about pennant, Chad. I'll have to do some research on this one. Kiam thinks it's an open book colored white. All right, what? I'm curious other theories on what this icon is, because I now have 3 different answers, which all could work. Epics represent more work. Now, I did a live stream yesterday for Confluence for Marketers, and I said, you can use an epic to represent a medium-sized project. And that's just a decision I can make. So the way your organization uses epics can differ. On very big projects, an epic might represent a big piece of work. I might have an epic that just represents server installation because I have to install 100 servers. I could have an epic, though, that represents just buy the servers, or I could have an epic that represents determine the configuration for the servers. It all depends on how we want to break down the work. The important thing is that when I, as a developer, see an epic, I know that the epic itself isn't the work. The work is really the story. So typically, as an end user in Jira, I won't be assigned an epic. I would be assigned stories or tasks to accomplish those. And for me, epics are grape flavored, but they're purple grape instead of green grape. The epic symbol, it looks like the Jira logo. So that one, at least I understand. We do have 2 other main work item types that we need to consider when we've got work items. One is bug and the other is task. And these are just the most common ones. Again, your organization may use different ones or have different type. Tracy's got a great question about work item schemes and screen schemes. I won't dig too deep into those right here, Tracy. And the reason I say that is because those are more on the admin side of the house. And the screen and work item schemes relate to how do we configure Jira at a high level. So I'll briefly give you a high-level description, and then I can reference you other information. And the other P-level trainings, the professional level, would dig a lot deeper into that. When I hear the term scheme, I think a shared configuration. So in my project, I may have a thing called a bug and a task. And I might have a different project that also needs a bug and a task. And so instead of setting them up twice, two different setups, I can use a work item scheme to say, here's a list of work items, and I want them to show up in project A, B, and C. And that way, when I change the scheme, it changes projects A, B, and C. Screen schemes are similar. Screen schemes define what shows up on the screens we have. So when I go to edit a work item or create one, I can do the same thing. So I can share the setup between projects. As an end user, those terms may come up, but it's unlikely. But they are very beneficial because it means that I, as a developer, when I go from one project and the same scheme is used in another project, it'll look very similar. I'll have the same work item types. I'll have the same buttons. I'll have the same types of setups. So it's very beneficial to the end user. And that's about as far as I'll get into it here, Tracy. I'll see if I can find some links by the end of this to share with you that dig in deeper. And be on the lookout for my Monday morning trainings because we get real deep into that kind of setup. Bugs tend to be created in response to an incident or a defect. So if I deploy some code and there's a bug in it, I'll probably get a bug ticket. And that's this little red one. Now, typically these are found by end users or automated systems. So I'll see these pop up, and to me, they're strawberry. That's just red for me. Maybe raspberry. I don't know. And last, we've got tasks. Tasks are another very common work item type. Stories will come from the end user, and this is a more strict definition. Your organization may not do this. I'll use Tracy as an example. She might say, as a learner, I need to understand work item schemes so I can empower my team. As a developer, I might have a task that is much more detailed. It might say, go update work item scheme JJ-whatever and include these 5 things. And so, again, it depends on your organization. For the purpose of the exam, tasks tend to be more technical and tend to be made by the development team. And if they ask, they're blue raspberry flavored, because I couldn't think up a good flavor for blue. There is a 5th work item type we just need to know about, and that is the subtask. In this screenshot here, the stuff in the red is the subtask. I don't use subtasks all too much. It allows you to break down certain work item types into smaller pieces. Now, they only exist under certain work item types. So, Tracy, this would be something your admin, this could be yourself, sets up. But typically, tasks have them. And they're this little icon that looks like, it's like a square with then a filled-in square next to it. I typically let my developers build subtasks if they need them. So this would be breaking down one chunk. So in my example of the work item scheme, I as a developer might develop a new work item scheme and a subtask, talk to users about their needs, a subtask, draw it out on a whiteboard, a subtask, build it in our demo box. So the subtask allows developers to break things down if they need to. Curious if y'all have used boards in Jira. And if you have, what you've used them for. I personally, did I? I'm trying to think when I started using them. I didn't start by using boards. Because when I started using Jira, I was just an end user putting in tickets. But they are something that I use quite a bit every day. Tracy Marie, I'm trying to type your name properly. I'm sorry. The video that I just linked, Tracy, is a training I did maybe a month or 2 ago on schemes. Good place to start. Boards to manage sprints. Chad uses them every day. Marie uses them. They tie directly into, especially Agile. And they are something that we will see a lot, especially on the exam, but as we use Jira as an end user. Tracy, I'll also drop my email feel free to send me questions there. I'll be happy to respond, and be on the lookout for additional future trainings that'll dig into the schemes. They are very important, though, so I appreciate you asking. Here we have a screenshot of a board. And again, to me, all of this is just second nature, but that's because I've used it quite a bit. Sean, our teams use boards to show during management calls. Boards in this context, just to clarify, are this screen, what Jira calls a board. And this allows us to organize our work. We have our nav menu, which is over on the left. But then in the board, we've got a lot of stuff going on. We have columns, and each column is mapped to at least one work item status. So in this example, I can see that there is a backlog that includes tickets. I've got some that are selected for development. I've got an in progress, and I've got a done. Now that doesn't mean the name of the status is selected for development, because the person who manages the board can rename the column. That just means the tickets in this column have been selected for development. Now, depending on how my team uses the board, it can be set up for Kanban, which helps us focus our work. And if you all recall from our first session, our team might have a rule: you only get two items you only get one item in progress. And when I see more than one item, I'm going to go remove one to focus you in on that one thing. And then you can see as your work moves from column to column if there's any challenges. Your board could also be set up, though, for Scrum, which is every, say, 2 weeks, we put some work into our sprint, into this top part, and then we intend to get all of that work into done by the end of things. Scrumban and Kanban, yes, Chad. Sean, nope, sorry. Dashboards, or information radiators, as they're generically called. I thought that's what you were describing based on your text. But you're correct. That's another thing that someone might call a board, which is why it's important to understand the terms. Because if you go and Google boards for Jira, you're going to get this. You're not going to get your dashboards. But dashboards are very important. Victoria, no worries. I'm glad you're here. This whole thing is recorded, so you can see me fumbling through this at your own leisure. Now, the important thing here is everything above the pink line is active, and that's what we're working on in the sprint. And then everything on the bottom is a backlog, and that's stuff we haven't committed to yet. Kim's got a great question. What do I do with an indefinitely continuing task? I guess I'll put a question out to the group. How do I phrase this? I can't think of a good way to phrase it, but I'm curious if the group has any ideas for Kiam here. We have an example could be like server maintenance. I'm making up examples. Or it could be answering help desk tickets. Where would you put that in Jira? Or how would you represent that? I have some ideas, Kiam, and I'll share mine in a moment, but I want to challenge the group. We've got about a dozen folks in here, and see if anyone else has run into this challenge. Because when we think of our work, we have our project work, the stuff that our team would be doing. But then to your point, we've also got stuff that we have to do all the time. And how do we cram that into this kind of setup? I mentioned that these columns exist, and the columns have to be mapped to one or more status. And that's just where work is in the process. And your team will define what these are, and your project manager, or you can have access to manage the board, can help. But again, the important thing to remember is active work is on the top, and then backlog, stuff you haven't committed to yet, is on the bottom. And typically I think of the board as my team's homepage. Like that's where they should be going all the time. Now, progressing items through statuses is super simple. All you do is click and drag it and drop it in the next column, and that will update the status. So as someone using Jira for my work, say I accomplish this task, which is very poorly named, these tasks, and then I say, hey, I want to work on it. I just drop it in this column, and that signals to the whole team, hey, we've done it. All right, I'm seeing a lot of answers for Cam's questions here. So one way to do it in Jira is there is a way to make recurring tickets. So you can represent it in every sprint as a ticket. And then the next sprint, there'll just be one. I think with automations, you can do this as well. Every week, make a brand new ticket. Sean breaks it up. Create tasks that end at the end of the month or quarter or the sprint, and then just have another one. KTLO is something, an acronym we'll see, keeping the lights on. It's stuff the team has to do just to keep the lights running. All the basic maintenance. And you close it out at the end of the year. Interesting. Chad uses an epic. Based on that description, Chad, I wonder if Kiam's referring more to like an operational task versus the smaller tech debt things. In my mind, tech debt is almost like a little mini project. It's changed enough we have to go fix it. But each piece of tech debt will be different. I'm guessing that Kiam's challenge is it's the same thing that's occurring all the time, although I'll let him correct me. Clone the issue and put it in the backlog with its own component. Emily also clones things. It's more a question, Kiam, of like the best approach for your team. There's a lot of different ways to handle that, as you've seen in the chat. And the one that I tend to do is the keep the lights on. I'll have a work item that goes in, and then I add a new one every sprint, and I have that represent the work. So by the end of the year, I'll have 26 of these things that I can look at and see how we did. What is the most frustrating thing about work items? And folks, thank you for jumping in and helping out your teammate here. That was really great to see so many people diving in to help out someone who you only know through YouTube. The other thing, Kiam, I'll drop a link in here while y'all are answering that question. We've got a Discord server going, which is just a chat platform called the Atlassian Study Community, where actually some of the folks in this chat are involved, where people are asking questions, sharing knowledge in between sessions. It's similar to the Atlassian community, but the intention is it's chat, so it's live and a little bit more personalized. So folks, feel free to join that and join in the discussions. Most of them relate to Atlassian products. There are some discussions about cats going on and other topics that I've put in its own channel. So feel free to come for Atlassian and stay for other fun things. Excuse me. Last few topics before we get hands-on. The create button is something we all need to know about, and this lives up at the top of the screen. And this lets you make a new ticket, a new work item. I didn't say the word I'm not supposed to say. I said a different word. Now, the one thing that I keep forgetting is it defaults to the last project you happen to be in. And so I will forget that, and I'll make a ticket in the wrong project sometimes. Just remember that it's stuck in wherever you were last, and it's almost always visible. Kiam, I love that approach. Gather these ideas and bring them to your team. A large part of being agile and being in any of these is to present ideas and then to figure out what works best for you. All the ideas that people shared might work for them, but there might be something about how your team works that you're like, hey, let's do KTLO, but change it a little. Or I found this idea and the team goes, no, that won't work for these reasons. So that's a big part of using these systems, is what works for you. There are other ways to make work items, though. There is a little tiny plus button that'll show up on work items that will let you make new things like subtasks or other work items. So be on the lookout for that little plus button just hanging around. For me, that speeds up my ability to make work items. Fields, as I mentioned, can be incredibly frustrating. The summary is pretty much the only required field. There are some other fields that are required that you don't have to worry about, like the work item key, so that the ticket number, most people call it. Jira will just make that for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Everything else, though, you typically have the ability to modify or change. And there are some hotkeys that can help you navigate this. So go check out the navigation session, which I think was last week, and that'll remind you how hotkeys work. But also keep in mind that fields can be project specific, and this can be incredibly frustrating. Especially if your team isn't using schemes, or if you have a lot of team managed projects, they're called. When you move between projects, the fields can change. And so just be aware of that. So when you're in certain projects, you might not have the fields you're used to. Cloning is also a thing, as multiple people pointed out. It copies most of the information, not all of the information. So one thing to keep in mind, Things like comments, history, and time tracking are not copied. I'm calling this out because it's possible it shows up on the exam. I don't know for sure, but it's also just good information to have. So you know when you clone it, these things aren't also cloned. Oh, yes. Generally, best practice, as Emily H. mentioned here, is to not allow users to create fields because you end up with, as Tracy's saying, 12 versions of the priority field because people are trying to be helpful. Um, yeah. So, Tracy, typically best practice is to only allow admins to make these fields. People can ask for them, but admins should be very careful about adding new ones. Erla, I hope I'm saying your name properly. Subtasks themselves can't be put into sprints. They have to be connected to a task or a parent work item. So they can't just be moved. Sarah's got a good point. You can copy comments if you want. They are pulled in by default. I typically don't copy them because when I clone a work item, it's something new, right? Like it's a new version of it. So I want to leave the comments on the old one. Clone and clone plus plus. um, are those add-ons or is that just like sorry? What is the difference between clone plus and clone plus plus? Just so I can understand. Um, all right, and then tracking work items. I love hearing about these and seeing the discussion. I'm going to move through these slides pretty quick just so we can get hands-on. Again, this is 45% of the exam roughly, so it's good we're taking time in here. There's a relatively new thing called the list view, which is found over in the left navigation. I personally don't use this too much. This is where my formatting was. However, it does have some new features, like you can do things like use custom formatting to highlight certain rows or cells that relate to certain things. And so this can help you manage your work that is different than a board. So you can do things in here like add these filters. You can do things like group, say, show me a group of just the high priority. You can search through it. So this is an attempt to make it easier to find work items and to make it easier for people working on the tickets to navigate their work. Again, I haven't been in here very much. We'll take a look at it live, but it's definitely worth checking it out. And I mentioned earlier, I need your help figuring out what we should study for next. I'll drop this link in here again, but please take a moment if you haven't to leave your thoughts on where we should go. And actually, I was a big dumb dummy, and I really need to add another question. And here's the link. Bleep. Oh, it lets you copy all comments. Nice. And magic portal into Jira. Look at that. Tracy, one way getting pulled in sideways, as I call it, to being an admin or something can be challenging. One way I found that can be beneficial is gather all the evidence you can for how frustrating it is currently and just point at the list of those duplicate fields and say, here's the pain this is causing, and here's why we need to change, and then lay out how you want to change it. So jump in that Discord or pop me an email. I can help you think through that, or we can bounce it off the group. But one, you're not alone. Two, you're not going crazy. That does sound insane. And three, there are ways to get out of it. This is Jira. This is the new UI. You'll notice the biggest difference is all of my menus are on the left now, and there's a giant search bar up at the top with a create button. I'm just going to pop into one of my projects. Where did you go? RTS, Rob's test space. I thought I was in Confluence. And right away, I'm defaulted to my board. And so this is just showing me all of the work I have. Now along the top, it's going to keep track of the number of work items in that particular column. So just at a glance, I can see what's where. Now, I do have some options. In the top right, I can choose how to group them. So I might say group them by assignee. And you'll notice it changed a little. Let me actually put some assignees on these things. There we go. Just to give us some flavor. Administrator. Oh, that is a great name for a user. Thank you to whoever did that. Here we go. So all I'm doing is clicking on the profile to quickly reassign it. So this is a great trick for navigation and working with work items. But you'll notice the backlog looked like it changed. Now I've got my stuff up at the top. Administrators is here and everything assigned. It's still in here. It's just a different way to visualize it. So as I'm working with these work items, I'll use these buttons up here to shift what it looks like. So I'll go back to the none. This is kind of the default view. Maybe I want to go by queries where I was. There we go. You also may have quick filters. So up at the top, you can only show things that are assigned to you. So this is another great way to quickly figure out what do I have to work on. And Jira will tell you in this column, 1 out of 3 things is assigned to you. In this column, 3 out of 7 things are assigned to you. So you can easily see them. Now to transition them through the workflow or move them between statuses, you can just click and drag. And you'll see it just updated. So as I'm working on my work, I may click on this, open it up, add some comment, do something to it, and then I can move it through the process just by clicking and dragging. So this makes it very easy for me to get my work done. I can focus on what I need to do, and then I can just drag it into the next column. Typically, again, these columns are statuses, and if you're having trouble with the columns, you're missing a status, there's some weird error, your project admin, the person who administrates your project, in this case RTS, can likely dig in and help you out. Let's pop open our list view, and first let's see if I can even find it. There it is. Again, this is relatively new. I am new to this as well. We all get to learn, and you get to watch me fumble through it live. It is the same, how do I phrase this? When I think of Jira, I think of it like just a giant spreadsheet. And all these different screens are doing is showing me a different slice of those tickets or a different way of looking at them. So there's no real wrong way to do it. The board tends to be best for managing work during a sprint or when I'm doing Kanban, but the list might be good for me to go find things. For example, I have all of these filters that I can pop open, and I can say, hey, I need to see the things due this week because I don't want to get in trouble because I missed something. Or maybe I want to see the things that are only of a certain work item type. Uh-oh, there's that word again I'm not allowed to say. Or maybe even I need to find ones of us that have a certain parent or a certain priority. So they're trying to make it easier for us to find our work and to manage it this way. Now I did mention some format rules. This is relatively new, but I can say if the assignee is Rob, make the rows red. Now, this is probably not very good just to pick on Rob, but instead I might do this for unassigned. So this would help me quickly find my unassigned work items or any other rule. So as I'm working with my work, I can come in here and quickly just see, hey, what's up? What needs an assignee? Oh, hey, Scrum Master, we got to figure out what's going on with these tasks because there's something wrong with them. Now then I can just open up the work item, and now I can add information to it. If I were to get this particular work item, I would immediately want to add information because with nothing on it, it's kind of useless. It doesn't tell me what I need to do. It doesn't reference other information. It's got other things in here. So I would come through and update the description. And I might do this based on working with my team, or I might do this because I have some documentation. One thing that I always forget, and please don't be Rob, hit save. If you don't save, it will save it as a draft essentially, but it won't be visible. So push those save buttons. and you'll see the description is just updated. Now, as I change the work item, there's a history tab that will record everything that happens. So if I made a whoopsie and I shouldn't have changed the description to this, Jira is going to be very nice and let me know what it used to be and then what I changed it to. This is also useful when I get a ticket from someone else. Let's say Emily was working on something and Emily, wins the lottery and decides to stop working. And she then decides to share half of her winnings with me so I can stop working, but she hasn't done that yet. I could come in here and figure out what has happened to this work item. It was created in April. It was finally moved out of the backlog. It got a lower rank. Oh, and the description updated. And this can get very long for longer tickets, but it's how we can untangle what happened. By default, the comments are shown. And in the comments, you can do things like @mention people. Please respond, I need help. This will send them a notification. But you can also do things like just keep a running tally of what you've been doing. And so this is also something I recommend teams always do. Whenever you touch a ticket, add a comment. And it could be a very quick, moving through the backlog, updated the description, something, so that when the next person looks at it, they're not confused. They know what's going on. A couple other fields we should be aware of. Up in the top, we have the statuses. And Tracy, this kind of ties into what you're referring to with the schemes. But right now, I can see I can move it to 3 different statuses. Now, if I'm curious, I can click on View Workflow, and this will show me a visual representation of how this work item can move. The circle is always when it's created, and this is telling me it first goes into the backlog. And this makes sense for Agile projects. It's a backlog item. It hasn't been prioritized for work. Next, it becomes selected for development, and then there's an in progress and a done. In this particular workflow, every status can go to every other status. So this is very open. They call them global transitions if you ever need to Google it, but it allows any status to transition to any other status. Your organization may have a different workflow. For example, it's possible tickets cannot go from backlog to done. So you'll see something different here. Whenever I join a new project, I always look at the workflow just so I understand what's going on. So again, that's just click on the status and go to View Workflow. And this will help you figure out how can the ticket move. It is also possible for tickets to end up in a done state and you can never undone them, if that makes sense. You can't move them out of that state. So that can be something you need to know about too. But again, the exact setup is dependent on your team and project. I mentioned pinning fields. If you mouse over the name of the field, you're going to see a very tiny thumbtack icon. And to pin it, all you have to do is click it. And you'll notice that that field now exists up at the top. This is unique to me, so other people can pin different fields. And I always recommend folks when they come in here, take a look at the fields that are important to you, the ones that you need to do your job, and pin them just so they don't get lost. Because you'll notice in details, I've got 3 fields, but then under more fields, I've got more. And depending on your setup, in Tracy's example, there might be a lot more things in here because someone has added a bunch more things. Does configure go? No, we're not going to talk about configure. Whoops. I just did a stupid. There we go. Helps if I don't close the window that I'm using. All right. I want to go back. I don't want to close this. That configure button is typically only visible to admins or folks with extra power. So for the purpose of the ACA-900, it doesn't exist. So these are all the fields I've got. Now to edit them, all I have to do is click in them. So to reassign it, I can just click on something. You'll notice that there was an Assign to Me button right beneath it. This is another easy way. You can just click it, and that'll assign it to whoever you are. This is something when we go and plan a sprint, when we think about, hey, I've got a sprint coming up, folks might do that. Another quick way, in the list view, you can just click in and change it. And then also from the board, you saw me very quickly clicking on the little head icon, and you can just click on someone's name to reassign it from here. So when I work with teams, they'll typically do exactly that. Let me get rid of these filters. And they'll just quickly reassign things by clicking on names and assigning it out to people. Yeah. Um, that is not uncommon, Tracy, and I'm sorry you get to experience the joy of untangling that kind of thing. But there'll be a lot of change management in your future. Again, it's not uncommon. You're not going crazy, and there is a way out. um, so I can change some fields right from here. Somebody mentioned it's annoying getting subtasks in. Right here, I have a subtask, and I can tell because of the little tiny icon telling me the work item type. It kind of looks like this. That's a hideous drawing. If folks haven't noticed, I am not really good at drawing. There we go. That's the subtask icon. I can't drag just the subtask. I can? What? I can drag just the subtask. When did that happen? Chad, help me out here. Huh. This is the other reason I go for certifications, because I learn things like this. Let me open this up real quick. Can I? Huh. What if I remove you? Well, I have some homework to do to figure out the new restrictions. You will notice, though, that visually the subtasks just look different. Here I've got a task, and the subtask has this little bar around it just to let me know. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for making sure I'm not crazy or letting me know. No, you didn't break me, Emily. You just Jira just thoroughly confused me. It happens to the best of us. That's the other thing I really appreciate about these. I tell folks if one person learned something, that's a win for me. And if I learned something, that's a win. So that counted. So this is now a successful session. Thank you, everyone. I will open up this work item again, though. Depending on your setup, you can integrate Jira with GitHub. And so you will see the ability to do things like create branches and create code commits directly from Jira. The goal here is to get your development team in Jira in one spot, so you don't have to go into too many places, and you can focus your work just in one area. So if your team uses code development for that, look at integrating with Jira. And one thing I haven't spoken about is time tracking. I have a love-hate relationship with time tracking. Let me figure out what the hotkey is. Hello? Hotkey. Log work is Q. Okay. And the hotkey is just a shift question mark. We'll get you there. So if I hit the Q button on my keyboard, or if I click in time tracking, I can track the amount of time I've spent working on something. I have a love-hate relationship with this because it's multiple steps. Like, this isn't automated. It doesn't tie into anything else. However, it will track that I spent a day on this thing, and then I can put an item explaining what I've done. And so this is one way for my team to track what's happened. How long did this thing actually take? Now, if you're using Agile, this is not a story point. Whatever you do, time is not a story point. But this is one way to track the amount of time work takes in Jira. So again, that's the Q key, or just clicking on time tracking. There are then other dates and things we can put in here. Typically, as the developer, I'll just get a ticket and it will have these target dates already set, or typically groups I work with don't even use them. They just put something into a sprint and they call it good from there. So again, it depends on what my team is choosing to do. And now we teleport back into my beautiful slide. I have a whole course on project management for non-project managers. If you're curious, please check it out. It's hosted over on my website, but the goal is for folks who work with project managers who aren't project managers, or for folks who want to learn more about the basics of project management. So a lot of the things I've spoken about here, what is a sprint kind of thing, I'll drop a link in the chat as well. Victoria, time tracking takes too much time. Have you put in a time tracking entry for your time tracking? That is my big challenge with it, and usually the pushback. It takes more time to get in there. Emily, this one is also on Udemy. However, this course is on my own site, and I did that because Udemy takes a nice bit out of the fee for hosting it. But you can find my course on Udemy. Tips and next steps. Again, this is about 45% of the ACA-900, but it's also a lot of just day-to-day work in Jira. So you can't be too comfortable working with work items. Please take time to go into your organization's instance, to a test instance, to something, and just start playing with what they are and how to use them. Just so you're familiar. So when you do start working on it or when you're talking to other people, you know what's going on. Please study on your own. If you want to take the exam, the 1 hour we get every week probably won't be enough. You're welcome, Emily. Good to see you. Good luck. So make sure you're taking time on your own to review these recordings or review the notes that hopefully you've been taking, or to talk to other people or to go through community. We do have 2 more sessions next week. I forget exactly what we talk about. It might be reporting, but the week after that's our review. So we'll go over everything we've learned, and I'll talk about things like how to sign up for the exam, what to expect in it, that kind of stuff. And of course, get hands-on. You can't have too much experience. I do have a site dedicated to ACA-900. That's in the bottom left, so definitely worth checking that out. It's got some more information, and you can also follow me on LinkedIn. I've got usually daily posts set up on Atlassian and stuff. Some of them are links back to this recording, but others are new tips and tricks about the new UI or what an SLA is, that kind of thing. And as I mentioned, I do have a lot of Udemy courses. I'll drop a link there if you're interested in learning more from me in a more structured setting. For me, the recorded stuff is fun, but the live stuff is funner. So thank you all for joining me. We just spent an hour talking about work items, and I only made the mistake of saying the word issue now twice. So hopefully I'm done with that habit. But thank you all for joining me. I hope to see you all next week. But please let me know what questions or concerns you have. I'll drop that Discord link again so you all can find it. But again, we're not alone when we run into these challenges, and please reach out. My email is right there on the screen. Pop into Discord and ask your questions, and I'll see you soon.